Joining me now, political strategist Bruce Hawker from Brisbane and Grahame Morris from Canberra. Thanks, gentlemen, so much for joining me this afternoon on this public holiday, except for in Perth, of course. Now, I first want to talk about Grahame Morris, one of your, well, former colleagues, I guess, Amanda Vanstone. She didn't mince her words in the Age newspaper this morning, saying that the cabinet process essentially was an ambush. Do you agree with her that that's how the process should have been run, and essentially that the Prime Minister is throwing out the traditions of the Westminster system?
I wouldn't have been as hard as Amanda, but certainly, you know, a bit of meeting procedure advice from Amanda is always welcome. Look, I work the other way round. Let's say, for example, that next month one of these people comes back to Australia. They play good guys momentarily, and then they enact some sort of terrorist act on Australians. You know, the government, the ministers responsible, the Prime Minister, everyone would get solidly kicked. And it just seemed to me, all right, the procedure mightn't have been brilliant, but what the government was trying to do, I thought they had a point. And that was, you know, if these people do go overseas, if they are trained as terrorists, then they shouldn't expect to come back here and just resume their life. Because look at what happened with the aeroplanes that flew into the World Trade Center. You know, those people were trained, were acting as sleepers until Al-Qaeda sort of activated them, and then they blew those blinking buildings to bits. Well, it shouldn't happen here.
Well, Bruce Hawker, it was interesting to hear from Bob Carr this afternoon on Sky News. He says this is something he actually got advice on when he was the Foreign Minister. So this should be something that Labor has actively considered in the past, you know, with or without seeing legislation. I understand that's certainly an imperative, but do you think there will be some concerns from the Labor left on this?
Always on the Labor left there are concerns of that nature, but you know, I think there is valid reason to be concerned about a proposal which would see the courts being replaced and displaced by a minister acting unilaterally. And I think that was part of what Amanda Vanstone was concerned about. That is something which you should be very, very careful about, and in fact the courts, and the High Court particularly, would probably stomp all over it if they decided to take that power to themselves, which is essentially a judicial one. And so I think, you know, there's good reason to be concerned about that. That doesn't mean that you aren't just as concerned about what's happening with the, you know, in Syria and elsewhere. You have to be very, very hard on them over that. And of course, Labor's come out and said that they're very supportive of the
Bruce,
notion.
It does appear to me at the moment that Labor is, you know, caught between a bit of a rock and a hard place at the moment. It doesn't want to appear to be being left behind on national security, but certainly, you know, Bill Shorten needs to quell the concerns from the Labor left. So how should it play this one?
Well, I think they should be in agreement with the government about the need to be able to strip dual nationals of their citizenship. It is a much more vexed issue, though, when you start talking about people who are sole citizens of Australia, and our obligations under international treaties not to go down the path that the government's intending to go down. That's where we've got a particular problem. What do you do about these people if they are just Australian citizens and don't have dual nationality? Well, you can throw them in jail when they come back. I mean, we've been told by Brandis and others that they're breaking the law by doing that. You can do all those sorts of things. But it is a much more vexed issue when you start talking about people who are just Australian citizens who may have been born here. Well, what do you do about them? You actually have to take some responsibility for punishing those people yourself.
And Grahame, by the same token, the government will certainly, on this issue of national security and revoking the citizenship of just single Australians or second generation Australians, well, that is popular in the electorate. But as we saw, the lawyers finding it out in cabinet, well, they don't want to, you know, get rid of the rule of law before, Malcolm Turnbull was talking about a US or in the United States, you can't revoke anyone's citizenship. So do you think that the Prime Minister here, Grahame, might not get completely his own way on this and there will be some kind of middle ground at the end of the day?
Yeah, and look, I think everyone has stepped back from... You can't have people left stateless. I think we all understand that. You know, in an ideal world, you do something with them, but I just can't see how you can. So, I suspect the first step would be to enact some sort of a law that says those with dual citizenship, we try and send them back to wherever they came from. But if they are Australians only, then I think the courts end up dealing with them in a normal way, and I hope they throw the book at them.
Bruce, we see the Killing season premiere on the ABC tomorrow night. Were you asked to give an interview for this? Did you? And do you think this will open some old wounds for Labor?
Answer yes, yes, yes. But I don't think that it will be a lasting issue for Labor. This is an important historical document, I think, that the ABC puts together after every change of government. It's been particularly hyped up, I think, because of the to and fro between Rudd and Gillard over the issue. But my gut feeling is that everybody really wants to move past this and beyond onto new things.
What about the to and fro between Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd, though? Is there a little bit of rewriting on history on both sides there, do you think?
God forbid that would ever happen. I think, though, that people, particularly former prime ministers, do take their roles very seriously and the place that they will have in history seriously, and they see this as an opportunity, I guess, to write it the way they want to see it. It was Churchill that said, history is going to be very kind to me because I'm the one who's going to write it. And I think that's what we see all the time from politicians. They're very, very jealous of their record, particularly after they've left politics.
Grahame Morris, what do you think of the Killing season? Do you think this will reopen some old wounds, or is it just one of those things that had to be done?
Oh, I hope there's blood all over the floor. Look, the ABC at times does this quite well, and I hope they've done it again. What is slightly odd about this one is that you've got the Punch and Judy show without Punch. Bill Shorten knifed both of them, and he's not in the program. That is slightly unusual and perhaps a bit disappointing. But by the sound of it, everyone who has seen the first edition, they say it is certainly a worthwhile exercise. It's good television, and I hope it rates well. I think there should be more of this sort of stuff.
And Bruce Hawker, just finally on this, do you think Bill Shorten should have given an interview for this program?
No, I think it was probably wise not to, really. I mean, he doesn't want to be associated with the former governments. He wants to be associated with a future government. So I can understand why, tactically, he would be very uninterested in being part of it.
And just finally onto another topic, Grahame Morris. Gillian Triggs again under fire, this time from the Immigration Minister Peter Dutton. Is her position untenable, or do you think she should be Australian of the Year, as some have suggested?
She wouldn't get my vote. Look, she's clearly not happy in the job. Why didn't she go and join Care Australia or somebody if she really wants to be useful? It just seems to me at the moment, if the government is not listening to her, then she has no authority. Her credibility's gone, and therefore she ought to, just go and do something else. If your government is not listening to you and stop listening, then you've got a real problem.
And Bruce Hawker, what's your take on this?
Let's go out and belt the hell out of everybody we want, Commissioner. She's there to do the unpopular job, particularly at a time like this when it's very easy to jump on the bandwagon and go hell for leather. Exciting public sentiment about an important issue, but still exciting public sentiment, and sometimes doing it in a way that is going to play out politically in your favour. So I do think from time to time we need the people who are prepared to do the unsavoury things in the public's eye and point out what's wrong with some of the proposals that the government's coming up with.
Bruce, Dick Smith has indicated today that he might be running at the next election in Tony Abbott's seat. How do you think he'll go there?
I doubt he'll go very well at all.
Grahame Morris, any chance? A bit of a shine off the Prime Minister's campaign? Do you think it might put a bit of excitement into what can be pretty dull campaigns at times?
I wouldn't like Dick Smith running against me. No, he'd be an awkward customer.
And Grahame Morris, finally to you. You offended some of our Irish viewers last week with some of your comments. We've had a lot of emails here at Sky News.
Laura, I got myself into a hell of a pickle on this. We were actually talking about the opposition leader saying because Ireland had changed its gay marriage laws, then Australia should too. And I said, well, that's a bit odd. And then I went on to use sort of Morris humour, and it didn't work at all. And in fact, for 2.5 days in Ireland, for the main media, I sort of kicked Grahame was the main sport instead of Gaelic football and soccer. Look, to all of the people in Ireland, the Irish in Australia didn't notice much, but in Ireland they did. And to everyone there in Ireland, to all those with Irish backgrounds, which includes me incidentally, I'm actually very sorry. What I said was tasteless, and I copped the whack I probably deserved.
Grahame Morris, an apology there, and I'm sure that won't be missed in Ireland going from the emails we've received over the past week. But it's always good to have you on, both of you, Bruce Hawker, Grahame Morris. A pleasure to have you on PM Agenda this afternoon.